What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Echo and the Bunnymen. Once again, shout out to Amber for making this material available and allowing us to go on this deep dive, which I've been curious to do for a while. Again, it's a phrase or a band name that I've known since I was young, and it was sort of brought back to my attention when I watched the movie Donnie Darko, which, if you haven't seen it, it's an interesting movie. I mean, I think there are things you could criticize about the sort of coherency of the plot and so on. But it's a cool, interesting film, and it has a really good soundtrack, especially for someone who was an 80s kid. It was, only like 10, 12 years after some of the songs that I think you hear, but it made me nostalgic as someone who was, moving into my 20s at that point. It made me nostalgic. Oh man, some of that music I heard on the radio as a kid, it really was good, wasn't it? So yeah, ultimately, when Amber suggested maybe going on a deep dive through their material, I was very enthusiastic to do that. I did just start reacting to Heaven Up Here, which is 1981. We're also going to go through concurrently the self-titled album, 1983, and the first track on it is called The Game. Again, if you're new here, if I haven't heard a tune before, at least I don't think I've heard a tune, I just think about the title for a minute or two, what it makes me think of. The Game, obviously, it's a bit opaque, it's a bit sort of basic in terms of there's so many different ways you can take that phrase, and ultimately sometimes games can be deadly serious. They can literally be games, sort of athletic competitions or at least recreational competitions. The game could be seen as like a particular paradigm of understanding an industry. It's like, you have to play the game if you want to work in this field, and you have to know who to talk to and sort of the networks to make, and it could be seen as like the specific way that you need to navigate something. I mean, there's so many different ways you could take the phrase. And then obviously it makes me, or not obviously, but it also makes me think about like specific types of games, like the most dangerous game, which is to say, hunting humans as sport, or, something that's more extreme like that. So whether it's down to sort of occupational considerations, or whether it relates to sort of like a particular way to go through an industry, a career, or a situation, or whether it has a more highly specific and maybe extreme meaning, it remains unclear. It is a bit ambiguous. Nevertheless, I do like titles that sort of are that thought-evoking or that provocative when it comes to, maybe running with the idea in a bunch of different ways. So, yeah, if a title has a bit of like literary cachet to it, it makes you think like, wow, that could be a lot of different things. I enjoy that title, even if it's a sort of simple title like on the page. So, in any case, let's get it. This is Echo and the Bunnymen. The tune is from their self-titled album, and it's called The Game. Kind of lighter and more confident than the opening tune on Heaven Up Here.
To make secrets too few beacons through the fog.
tune. Again, compared to the one other track I did in the session from a different album, it felt lighter, it felt more consonant, but the lyrics felt like, it was a relationship that maybe wasn't going to exist anymore, because the narrator sounds like, I played this game before, and so I'm not, I'm not naive to what this is or what's happening here. It sounds like Kiss Goodbye is sort of like an intentional sort of declaration that, this is the end. I'm not going through this. Obviously, I didn't catch everything there. Maybe I'm misreading that. So lyrically, got to go through it once or twice more. Do let me know if there's, a line or two that's particularly important to sort of understanding what's happening here. But ultimately, sonically very like smooth. Like when it first started, it felt like something that could be played in like a travel scene in a movie, someone looking out a train window or something. Now the vibe got a little bit different once the like proper verses started, but it did feel like a more kind of like bright, like considered sort of like emotional atmosphere, whereas again the first track on Heaven Up Here, it felt like murkier and hazier and darker. So enjoying already after a couple tracks, a bit of variety, and ultimately the only thing that sort of in these first two tunes it makes me think about what I had in my head about them is some of the vocals feel kind of like if you would ask me 6 months ago, a year ago, like, okay, Echo and the Bunnymen, what do you remember? I'd be like, well, I basically remember the Killing Moon, and I kind of remember the guy has a big kind of like powerful theatrical sort of vocal sound. Although here I suppose it was more sort of subdued and restrained. Not that there weren't some moments where it was with a bit more vocal power, but ultimately it did feel a bit more sort of lower key compared to the track on the other album. So bottom line, looking forward to this deep dive. Once more, shout out to Amber. Do let me know what you think of this one. I will see you next time. Peace.